In this video, we're going to be doing some training for Mango Compliance Software Skills and E-Assessment module, also known as e-learning. So the takeaways I'm hoping that you'll get from this is a demonstration of how an organisation can upload their own learning material, whether that be slides, documentation, or linking to videos. Can even be accessing videos that can be online, for example, YouTube, health and safety sites, things like that. It allows you to set skill assessment questions, assign those skills and assessments to employees through Mango, and set targeted events as well that they may need to be repeated, for example, on an annual basis. And also, once complete, identify who the assessor will be that will check the questions and confirm that the person understands the content of the material. And at the same time, once that's complete, it uploads the HR records inside the Mango module for that person that has completed the assessment. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to jump on to Mango. So we're going to be talking about the skill and e-assessments. So all of that lives in the human resource module. So what I'm going to do is jump down to the human resource module, go into the skills area. And this is a location where we would set our skill. The type of event could be something which is done by an outside training company, an assessment. What we're going to focus on today is the e-assessment. E-assessment inside the Mango compliance software is something that allows you to focus more upon a learning activity with an assessment at the end of it as well. So this one here we have as an example is a manual handling e-assessment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here. And this is one I populated earlier, but I'm going to show you an example of how you do that. So when you come into here, this is just simply the name of the assessment in this area. So you simply hit edit like anywhere in Mango. And if you wish, you can change the content of what it is that you've saved it as. If you feel the need to put a description of what the training event is, then you can do so. In the case of manual handling, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. But if you wish to, you could put some content in here. What I'm going to do is just save that, these changes that I've made. But importantly here, we have this box called Assessment Setup. Before I jump into that and talk about the assessment setup, I want to remind you that any skill which is set up within Mango can be a one-time skill that you send to someone, or it may be something that you wish to set up as a repeat event. So in this case, I'm just going to show you if I wanted to set this up as a repeat event, I would click the edit button again, enable the event, and I may want to just mention here, so it's an annual manual handling refresher. So we're going to be doing that every 1 year. And before then, we're going to let people know a week ahead, just so they're prepared. And if they don't complete it after, let's say, 1 month, we're going to give them a reminder. And we're going to identify who the owner are of these events as well. So we might say here, in this case, the owner of these events, myself on this demo account. And of course, you need to inform the employee as well. So the content in here is what they will receive on the email. So please undertake the manual handling assessment pressure. And of course, like everything that is an event in Mango, if it's not done after a period of time, then it will get an escalation. And let's say in this case, it's going to lady in HR department. So we've now set the name of the skill and we've now set a yearly event against it, and we hit save. If for any reason that we didn't wish this annual refresher to continue, but we wish to use the event only for new staff coming into the organization, we can simply just edit it and click here, and the annual refresher is disabled. So as I mentioned, this is mainly focused on the assessment setup. So what I'm going to do is click into the assessment setup. Like everything in Mango, hit edit before you have to do anything. So the first thing is it pulls through the name of what we set it up from in the previous page. It asks us to identify who it will be assessed by. And as you can see here, when we hover over the question mark, it says only internal assessors are selectable. For that reason, it's understandable because this is for an internal assessment against a learning activity that you are doing internally. So we're saying for the sake of this demo that it's this person that's going to be the assessor. We identify what the pass mark is. So we, depending on the number of questions we have and how complex it is and how important it is, we maybe decide to loosen that a little bit. So we may say the pass mark is 80%, for example, so 4 questions out of 5 or 8 out of 10 acceptable. We might want to adjust it. In this case, we're going to leave it that, well, we believe everyone should achieve a pass mark. We give the opportunity for incorrect attempts. So what we mean by that is we give the person that's doing the learning activity 3 attempts at the questions, and then it will identify that that person has failed, and it will require the assessor to reset it. Okay, but what it will do is, if, for example, if we change that to 1, it would mean the assessor, each time any person fails the first time, they're going to get a communication to reset it. So we always say it's, it's good practice to give your employees the opportunity to go back and relearn the material by their own judgment, and then to set the questions of the assessment again. We then identify the number of questions that we wish to have inside the assessment. So that's completely your decision. So if you've got someone internally that has some material, and they can set the question. So this one is about manual handling, but I have another example inside Mango, which is about an induction, where we've prepared some slides demonstrating about our organisation and the things that people need to know about the organisation, and importantly, things to do with emergencies and fire alarms and so on and so forth. And again, you can use this form for people to learn that and then respond to a couple of questions that's asked about them. So in this case, we're going to identify, just to make it fairly quick and simple, we're going to identify 5 questions. This tick box here allows us to say whether we're going to randomize the questions. If you've got quite a number of people in your organisation, first person that's successful at it may actually record the information and may pass it on to the colleagues. I'm not suggesting that would happen, but it could. So therefore, if you randomize the question order, then they fall into a slightly different order. And also when a person comes to be resetting it, if they failed in their first attempt, it will just randomize a little bit again. This one here is about publishing the test. So this is basically saying if you're currently in the process of just creating the content, then you untick this. When you save it, it won't publish the test to go anywhere at that point, and you cannot assign it to anyone. Once you've completed everything you want to do, then you click the publish, and that means it's available to others. It's a little bit like creating an audit assessment, an audit checklist, but you're not completed it yet. You just want to save it and not make it live. Okay, so down to the content. So at this stage here, we've got multiple options we can do. We can physically type in the content that we want people to learn. In the case of this one, all we have done is we've taken a manual handling YouTube video. So here is the YouTube video that we're referring to. We've clicked on the share button here. We've copied the content of that YouTube video, and we've simply just dropped it in using the insert edit media. That allows us to drop the content directly into the learning area and allow people to press play and watch the video. If we don't want to do that, and we maybe have our own slides, Then we've also got the option of inserting documentation, which is inside our document module. So we can insert PowerPoint files that are inside our document module. Or if we wish, we may have a number of images that we want to, so it could be slides externally in the business that we want to capture as pictures or images, and we can drop them in as well. Important thing to remember is if you're dropping in multiple images, then you add multiple slides. In the case of this one, it's a video on one slide. If you wanted to add multiple slides, you simply just hit add the slide, and then this gives you the opportunity to add the images of where you on the next slide. So you could have multiple slides of just presentations. Okay, so I'm just going to move this one. Cancel that. I'm just going to go back to this particular one. So this one, as I said, is a video that was taken directly from YouTube, and it will play inside Mango or give the person the opportunity to blow up and look elsewhere. So what do we have to do now? Well, after someone's learned the content, we need to create our questions and answers so that the person that is learning the content is getting the opportunity to be assessed. So let's go with the question here. So the first question we might ask is something about manual handling itself. So I'll make it simple. Is manual handling a requirement for me to know and align with? Well, very simple. It could be just my answer is either yes or my answer is no. Very straightforward in this first question. But importantly over here, you have to identify what is the correct answer. So yes, it is. So we then go on. We can add more answers if we want to this question, or we can simply just go and add another question. So our next question we're going to ask is, what weight is the maximum one person should lift? I'm not necessarily saying these are correct questions and answers. That's not the purpose of this. It's to show you the method of setting it up. So the answer here is 100 kilograms. I don't think so. 55 grams or 20 kilograms, I think actually is. And again, we tick what the correct one is. And we go on. So correct method to bend and lift. So might be a little bit simpler here. What is the correct method? You've got to think about the person that's reading the question as opposed to yourself that's writing it. So bend the hips. Never bend or squat. I knew how to spell. Bend knees down and keep back straight, etc., etc. What we're going to say is probably something like this one. And we can go on and go on. I'm not going to talk more and more about adding questions and answers. We can just add and keep building this up, okay? Ultimately, what we want to have is we want to get to a position where we have the right number of questions that aligns with the number of questions that we said. So in this case, I'm going to change this one to 3 for this demo. If I had 3 questions here, that's correct. But if I had 5 here and I put 3 in, it's not going to function correctly. So we need to make sure that the number of questions we've put in aligns with what we say the questions are going to be. Okay, so we could continue and add more questions to this. And a lot of this data you can get within your own business from people that you work with, or you can get it online on YouTube and things like that. Key thing to remember is what are the types of things that you want to assess, and importantly, these are things internal to your organisation. So it could be about driving policies, about what's expected of people. Are they allowed to use their mobile phones? Are they allowed to smoke in the company vehicles? Etc. Etc. Are they allowed to use the vehicles for personal use? It can be multiple reasons why you would do this type of activity. Key thing here is that I've created this learning content on manual handling. I've created some questions that's going to assess whether these people understand the content. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it. So I've now created this skill assessment setting, which is recorded, randomized questions, published, learning content, and a couple of questions. Now, like any skill within Mango, you must assign that skill to your employee. Now, it may be that you wish to assign it to multiple employees. In that case, you use the add multiple function here, which again is still within human resource. I'm going to add multiple skills, and I'm going to add them to a bunch of employees. So I'm going to select these employees, for example, that I want to assign it to, and I hit OK. And what skill level are we referring to here? So if there's many inside there, might be easier just to search for it using the search bar, select the correct one. The competence level is that they are unskilled at the moment as they've not completed it, and we're looking for them to complete it today, and who the assessor is going to be of that particular skill, and we save. Now, if I am logged on as an employee to do this particular event, then I'm going to demonstrate what it looks like undertaking the skill. So when I go into my profile, and here is various areas within my profile that I can access. The key area we're looking at is the My Skill. When I click in My Skill, again, I may have multiple skills in here, but let's refer to the manual handling one. Key thing I want to do is I want to learn the content. So here, when I click Learn Content, as you can see, it's came up with the live information linking to YouTube. If I press play, I can then go on and learn the content. I can make it full screen if I'm using it here. I'm just going to pause it now. And let's say I have completed the assessment, completed the learning material. So I've gone through and I've watched the 16 minutes, or I've looked at the multiple slides. And here is the area I added an additional slide. So here, if it was captured in multiple slides, albeit the next slide was empty, but if I click next slide, there would be the content that I added. So I may wish to finish learning. I may have caught up and started the learning and got caught up with a telephone call or called to a meeting, didn't realize it was going to be 16 minutes, so I might want to restart it again, complete it. And then ultimately what I want to do is take the assessment. So here the assessments came in. It's telling me I've got 3 attempts remaining. Is manual handling a requirement for me to know and align with well working? So let's say no. What weight is the maximum one person can lift? Let's say kilograms, and bend the knees. So I've got 33% of the required 100%. So I want to go back. I may wish to learn the content again because I've made some mistakes. And then I'm going to take the assessment. Is manual handling a requirement? I now know because I've learned the content that it is. I believe it's 22 kilograms. And I'm bending knees down and straighten my back. So it's now said you've got 100% of the required assessment. You have passed this assessment. And I go back. So that is me completed as an employee, completed the requirement of what I was meant to do. Because the assessor, you can still see it still says unskilled. The assessor, who was identified as myself, will then receive an email about this to say that this assessment has been complete. Now, it's not always the case that this will come immediately on an email. Often within Mango, some of the activities come only at one time in a day. So in the case of this, what it should also do is it should drop down into my Mango area here on my dashboard. So you can see here that Chris Doherty has completed a manual handling e-assessment. Obviously, it's not going to be the same person that assesses it as completes the assessment. So I would hit edit in here and assign their competency. So I'm now changing it based on the fact that they've told me that they have completed it, and the system I can see has given them 100% pass mark. Then I'm going to change their assessment to skilled. So what we see here is that this is what was sent to me on an email and allows me to access it. I can see the details of the result of their questions, whether they repeated any questions. I can see the assessment history. Okay, so in this time they made a mistake here, so I may want to talk to them about it if I wished, if it was important. But also important on the person completing this, what we must recognize as well, which is quite good, is that the event itself and the record of the competence has gone into this person's HR file. So when we click into the person's HR file and we go to their competence, I'll just make the screen a little bit bigger because I'm working from home on a small laptop. Scroll down to the skills area and we're looking for manual handling, and we can see here that the manual handling assessment was completed and it was assessed internally by Chris Doherty on this date. It does not have a repeat because we disabled the annual event, but if we wish to go in and change that and reassign the annual event, we can do that, and we can update the existing records that are there as well. Just show you that very quickly as well. We go into the manual handling, go into the events, and I want to enable the event. I want to change all records. And as we said, if annual, then it's every year. And we'll let the people know 1 week, and we'll give them 1 month to complete it. And who the owner would be Chris is the owner of the event, but it's important that the employee is copied in. And as always within Mango, there's this escalation that if someone doesn't complete it, in this case, we'll send it to an HR. So when we save that, that's now saved the event. If we go back into individual Chris's content and look at competency, and we scroll down to manual handling, we see that he completed it on the 15th, and it now recognizes that there is an annual event associated to it. So it will trigger 1 week ahead of this next date to send an email to the person that's the assessor and also to the employee. So hopefully that's been worthwhile. Thanks very much.